How is it that you actually write an effective press release? Hi guys, my name is Deepak Shukla, founder at Pearl Lemon PR. We're a public relations agency based in the UK, USA, as well as Uganda, and serving clients worldwide. And here today in day number 7 of 39 days of PR, we're here to talk about, of course, how to write a press release. But before we get into it, feel free to click the link in the description below to get access to 11 additional strategies that are not shared in this training. So look, fundamentally, when it comes to a press release, there's a couple of things that I think are critically important to understanding. So whenever you are submitting a press release online, there's a couple of things that I'd say that are out of the gate quite important. Number one is a press release isn't a promotional piece, okay? Or rather, if we think about promo, it is not an overtly promotional piece. So think about it. When you're writing a press release, it's got to be something that's noteworthy for the press, okay? And noteworthy isn't saying, "Oh, hey, we're Pearl Lemon PR. We're awesome. We've done such amazing things in life, and it's absolutely brilliant." Because that is not something that is worthy of a press release within itself, okay? So I think one of the key things is being mindful of what it is that you're trying to communicate through the press release. So think about it almost from a human interest perspective, that it needs to be something that people would generally and genuinely be actually interested in reading about. So, of course, if you want to, subtly promote your company, then absolutely a press release is definitely the way to go. And a lot of the time, that is the ultimate end game of a press release and what you're doing it for. So that's just the first consideration, that do not write it as a puff or over promo piece. Okay, so that's the first thing to consider. The second thing to consider is having a catchy headline. Okay, so a catchy headline is where there's a hook in the headline. So an example of a hook could be, let me think about this. Pearl Lemon PR produces in-depth public relations training for the community. Pearl Lemon PR produces exhaustive public relations training for the community. Something like that as an example. But then, if you take that as an example, you want to then continue to tweak it a little bit like you would copy. So Pearl Lemon PR releases exhaustive PR training, or Pearl Lemon PR produces 7 hours of free public relations training. So do you see how we're beginning to just tweak it? So Pearl Lemon PR seven hours, produces 7 hours. Pearl Lemon PR produces exhaustive 7 hours of exhaustive content. Um, and then if you want to even tweak it so it doesn't feel like that's too overtly promotional, um, so then it could be like, uh, guide released on never seen before PR strategies. So now I'm beginning to, guide, you know PR agencies strategies, PR secrets revealed, or PR never before seen PR strategies revealed on YouTube. So do you see now how never seen before PR strategies revealed in this free training? So now we're, it's a pseudo, let's call it, lead magnet, which is something that you'd want to opt into, but also an interesting press release. So do you see how, if you were to pause this video back and go back through the titles I've just described, we're beginning to angle it so it's like the subject of the whole piece is within the title, and then as you move into the piece itself, you need to make sure that you don't use too many superlatives, so it's not very, let's say, flamboyant, and it feels almost, and this is where the press releases are interesting, it feels a little bit almost like an academic piece of writing, because you're trying to be factual, you're trying to talk in terms of stats, and this is especially important, and this is where the differences come in when you're writing, for example, for a financial audience versus talking about ultimately, a release. So a good example that we would talk about is, I'm doing a TEDx talk at Cambridge this weekend. Okay, so then we want to maybe discuss something in relation to the Cambridge TEDx talk. So Shukla to speak at Cambridge discussing employment posts. Shukla discusses the perils of employment for 55 and over post-pandemic at Cambridge. So Shukla discusses the perils of post-COVID employment, or the challenges of post-COVID employment for the 55, for the older for Gen, whatever it might be, for baby boomers post-pandemic. So again, I'm just spitballing. So what I mean by that is I'm just giving you examples of different titles. Now, in terms of other things, I'd say, between probably 500 to 750 words in terms of length is quite important. I'd say that having some kind of structure, and then using like Shukla, i.e. my last name, treating it like a professional news piece, taking a couple of quotes from things that I said if you want to get my insights from it, and intermingling it with some level of, let's say, statistics to give it that feeling of accuracy, and much like you would an academic piece, but with the human interest angle, are good ways to put together effective press releases. It should contain maybe 1 to 2 links of your choice, and that would be it. It can contain, of course, at the bottom, press contact details. So if there's someone within your organization who you'd like any request to go out to, this is often contained at the bottom of a press release. If you want to get in touch, then that would be, your PR person. So that would be my co-founder, Pearl Kaziri, head of Pearl M and PR, as an example. So you'd have the contact details at the bottom. And then you might want to embed one video link depending upon the publications you're submitting to. Not all of them do it, but these are some of the things to consider when you're putting a press release together. So there you have it, guys. That is how, in my view at least, to write an effective press release.